Thank you so much for joining today. We've got our wonderful president, Miss Gwen Kozlowski, here to talk about the Czech Republic, which is very fun. And I know we're all excited to continue dreaming for when the world is ready for us. Just as a few quick reminders, we've got everybody muted at the moment, but at the end, we will open it up for any live questions that you may have. But I will be here in the background monitoring the chat. So if you do want to use the chat sort of as Gwen's going along through her presentation, feel free to do so and I can pause and chime in with your questions. This presentation will also be recorded. So if you do need to jump out early for any reason at all, we will be putting it up on our YouTube channel later this afternoon or first thing tomorrow morning. And I think that's all of my little housekeeping reminders. So with that, I will turn it over to you, Gwen.
Awesome. Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for joining. I'm going to share my screen so you can all see some very pretty pictures of the Czech Republic. So first of all, just thank you for participating today. I love to talk about Central Europe, and Czech Republic's definitely one of my favorite destinations. And today, because I know a lot of advisors are already very familiar with Prague, or you've been to Prague, or you've been selling Prague forever, today I'm going to do a little bit on Prague and a lot on everything else. So just to give you a general idea of the map, Czech Republic is here in the very center of Europe. So you pretty much can't get more central than that. And you'll see it's surrounded by Germany, Poland, Austria, Slovakia. Very easy access to a lot of different destinations within Europe, both by high-speed train, depending on the city, or easy drives, or sometimes a very short flight. And I will say before I get started, if you have any questions at all, I don't care if you interrupt me by chat, please feel free to, it's fine with me. I'm happy to answer anything that comes up. So just to look at the Czech Republic itself, Prague is kind of in the center of the country. And I just wanted to give you like a little overview of other places. So here on the left, this is Karlovy Vary. It's also in German known as Carlsbad. I generally don't send a ton of people there for spa because in the Czech Republic, spa means taking the waters. And while you can get massages and facials, it's more about the baths than anything else. And somehow that doesn't match with Americans' ideas of spas. However, if you have guests that collect crystal, in particular Mosher, this is where the Mosher factory is. I wanted to mention Pilsen here. I don't generally have people overnight here, but it is the perfect stopover when you're having people driven from Germany, especially from the river ports, Regensburg, Nuremberg, Passau. They drive right through Pilsen on the way to Prague. And if you have anyone interested in beer, this is the home of Pilsner Urquell. So it's a great stopover to do a brewery tour, or even just to walk around, or they have a really nice synagogue here. Down here in the south, this is the one people know most, Český Krumlov. You can see it's directly south of Prague. It's about 2.5 hours driving, not linked by train, so this is always a road trip. It's often used as a stopover between Prague and Vienna, although later I'll tell you why I prefer it as an overnight rather than a day trip. An additional option when you're driving to Vienna instead of going through Český Krumlov is to go through Mikulov. That's here. This is the heart of the Moravian wine region. It's actually a tiny bit shorter drive. And because this one is not really on anyone's radar like Český Krumlov, it's often way less crowded. Near Mikulov, also in Moravia, is Brno, which is another big city, and I don't necessarily love it for its big city, but for architecture buffs, it's a must. It's where you find Villa Tugendhat, which is by Mies van der Rohe, and we can do private visits to this. It's a UNESCO World Heritage Site. And then finally, I just wanted to point out Olomouc here. And you see the arrows coming from here, that's Poland. And oftentimes we have guests that are going from Krakow to Prague or Prague to Krakow. There is no direct flight at the moment. Who knows what'll happen in 2021. And the train is quite long, 7 hours. So often we drive people. It's 5.5 hours straight through, but we often stop here just for a walk around or lunch or a bathroom break or just a pretty little town to see. So For those of you that haven't worked with us before, our biggest feature we bring to the table here when we're working with you is our local knowledge. So everything that you will hear me say today is based on my own personal knowledge of things I've experienced traveling in the Czech Republic or found on my own. We invest a lot in our staff training, and that's not just training here in the US. That's really taking some sometimes very painful, very fast, deep dives into destinations so we can find restaurants and hotels and guides and experiences for your guests. We focus on customized journeys. So everything we do here is on an FIT basis, and we can customize it based on a particular interest, or if it's a family, or maybe they need a slower pace because of mobility issues. The more information you share with us, the better we can create a program that's going to be the perfect fit for your guests. And finally, I just want to say I'm most proud of our guides. These are a huge labor of love to get the right guides for your guests. And what we do is interview people on the ground. We make them tour with us. We also interview them by phone, because oftentimes you hear a different kind of accent when it's over the phone. And it's really based, for someone who gets to work with our clients, it's really based on personality and knowledge and knowing that they have the same service levels that we want upheld. And really, guides can make or break a trip. That's why it's so essential that we're always finding the best ones in each city to match with your guests. All of our guides also have different specialties. So if you tell me that you're sending art lovers to Prague, I would use a different guide than if you said I'm sending people that want to do a deep dive into Jewish heritage. So just a few highlights. These are my personal highlights of the Czech Republic. For Prague, I feel like this is the quintessential fairy tale town of Europe. So I love when we have multi-country destinations that people end in Prague. It is the vision that Americans have of what a fairy tale Central European town should look like. It is clean and scrubbed and beautiful. The other part of Prague that is a really big draw for our guests is its extensive Jewish heritage. And it's worth noting that Prague will have the best hotels in the country. They're good countryside hotels, but Prague is where you get the real five-star hotels: Four Seasons, Mandarin, Marriott International, Luxury. There are a number of independent brands. So this is where you have the best hotels. And it's really easy to fill 3 or 4 days in Prague without even trying. There's plenty to do. It's also a great shopping destination. And because I showed you earlier on the map, it's very easy, how central it is, sorry. It's very easy to combine with other cities in Europe. Berlin, a 4-hour train ride away. Vienna, 4-hour high-speed train. Munich, 4-hour train. Nuremberg, like a 3.5-hour drive. So it's very central and one of those places that combines very well. If we're looking at the rest of the Czech Republic in the countryside, some highlights are that there are so many towns and sites that are close enough to Prague to make a really great day trip. I personally like day trips where the drive is an hour or less, because I hate to leave people in the car for such a large part of the day. And Prague makes, I can think of 5 off the top of my head within an hour, very different, very interesting day trips that we can do depending on your guest interests. Convenient train connections, and they're only adding more. I hear that there will eventually be a high-speed train into Poland, although I think we're a few years off from that. For those who have guests that like to be a little bit more serendipitous and intrepid, Prague and the Czech Republic are pretty good for self-drive. There's no giant autobahn or superhighway. It's all mainly smaller roads and friendly people, and less stressful than places like Italy for driving yourself. For those who have guests that are still fixated on castles, the Czech Republic is a castle lover's dream. Every little town has a castle. Because of its heritage with the Austro-Hungarian Empire, there are a lot of different castles based on a lot of different former noble people, and you could literally fill a trip with just castles. And on the flip side, if you have people that prefer beer over castles, Czech Republic is one of the largest beer producers in Europe, and actually I think has the greatest per capita beer consumption. Pilsner Urquell and the original Budweiser Budvar are 2 of the most well-known beers from the Czech Republic, but there are lots of microbreweries both inside of Prague and in the countryside. So if you have guests where this is an interest, and not even necessarily doing brewery tours, just going for tastings, it's completely possible. I mentioned earlier Carlo Vivari with the spas, and also I see more guests wanting to do something active. And the Czech Republic has a program called the Czech Greenways, which are biking routes located throughout the countryside that make a really nice, safe ride. They do have hills, so it's got to be people that are ready for a little bit of hills or e-bikes. And for such a small company, Czech Republic has some really interesting and varied national parks, from like otherworldly sandstone formations in the north to caves in the south. So if you have people that want to be outdoors, especially now in our new normal of post-COVID travel, there are a number of places where we can recommend they have a day outside. And in the countryside too, you'll find a great selection of boutique hotels, all with quirks. Nothing's perfect, but really beautiful, just very atmospheric places. So just to start off quickly with Prague, since I would venture that most of you have some degree of familiarity, I just wanted to let you know a few special experiences that we do here. We call them extraordinary experiences, and these are usually things that are private for your guests only or impossible to arrange on their own without knowing someone. And one of our most popular is this inside visit to the Strahov Monastery Library. This is one of the halls. They go into two. And you see this doorway here at the end. This is normally open with a velvet rope, and that's where everyone else is standing. And your guests are right here in the middle with the guide, and they can tell them about the artwork and the different books and who uses this. It's really a special experience, and one of the more less costly ones. For those traveling with families, and we see more and more families every year that want an authentic, local, immersive experience, there is a family that used to be residents of Prague that moved to the countryside, and we take our guests to their home and their farm, and they can interact with the animals, and if they want a cooking lesson of some Czech traditional dish or a craft, this family is very flexible, and it's a really nice way for American kids to interact with local kids in a kind of unstructured, natural way. When we're talking about family experiences, please know that we make our own children be our guinea pigs on this. So everything you see, we've done with our own kids to make sure it works. Another thing that is great for kids, especially boys, is to do something hands-on to keep them kind of engaged and interested. Czech Republic's famous for glass, so we have a glass artist in the center of the city that will do a glass painting workshop, and then that evening after they leave, he fires the glass and packages it up and delivers it to the hotel so they have a souvenir to take home. And then for younger kids, I love the marionette experience. This is the backstage of the Prague Marionette Theater. You can see these marionettes are large, and what happens for your guests is they get to go in, they see 10 minutes or so, a snippet of a performance. They get to go backstage, see how the marionettes work, try it themselves, and then go into one of the workshops and make their own marionette to take home. Super fun way to kind of bring a little bit of culture and a little bit of Czech tradition home with the guests. And for those who are really interested in arts, this is the Estates Theater. It's a little jewel box of a theater right in Prague's Old Town. It's where Mozart premiered Don Giovanni, and we can do backstage tours here, or of course, with any of the theaters in any of our destinations, we can always arrange tickets to performances. And this is another theater. It's called the Municipal House. I hate that name. Nobody ever understands what I'm talking about, but this is where the Czech Philharmonic often plays. But better than that, I think, for a tour is focusing on the art of the building. These paintings here are by Mucha, which is the Czech Republic's probably most famous modern artist. He was a contemporary of Klimt, and we can do a private tour looking at just the art in this beautiful building. So just a quick note about hotels. When we are talking about hotels in Prague, if you prefer to book hotels on your own or if your clients are booking with Marriott points or Hilton points, we are completely fine to do the program with ground only and no hotels. If you would like us to book the hotels, the ones that we work with are very carefully selected both on location and quality. In the 5-star category, we work with the Four Seasons. This is in Old Town. And when you book with us, Virtuoso amenities are honored, or if you're Four Seasons preferred partner, those amenities are honored as well. The other 5-star hotel that we work with is the Augustine. You can tell completely different look. This is on the other side of the river in an area called Malastrana, and it's in an old monastery. So in some of the rooms like this, which is on the top floor, you see original beams. You can tell the decor is a little bit more quiet here than in the Four Seasons, which has almost more of an Art Deco feel. This used to be a Roccoforte, so some of the furniture still reflects that a bit. Augustine is part of Virtuoso and Signature, so amenities carry through there. And just as an aside, when we're talking about 5-star hotels with a view of the castle, this is your best value for that. You look out this window over the rooftops, all these red rooftops to the castle. The Four Seasons has the most like full frontal view across the river to the castle, but they have a very limited number of rooms that have this, and those generally start over $1,000 a night. We work with 2 4-star hotels in Prague. There are hundreds of 4-star hotels, and there are a lot of good choices, but we really wanted to narrow it down. So number 1, we're sure that our guests are getting a consistent experience, and number 2, location, location, location. So this is the Aria. It's part of Signature, not Virtuoso, but it is the same owner as the Aria in Budapest. So completely different vibe, but it's a nice little boutique hotel. You can see out the window, these plants, it's right next to one of the castle gardens. This kind of sits at the foot of Prague Castle. During nice weather, they have a rooftop bar with gorgeous views, and nice small hotel, but oversized rooms. Everything was completely redone in 2018. Just like in Budapest, if you've seen that one, theme here is music. So there are a lot of different musical themes, but the vibe is not so like modern as the one in Budapest. And then this is a special fresco room at a hotel called Smetana. If you've been selling Prague a long time, this used to be called Pachtův Palace and was part of Ma Maison. And now it's its own independent boutique hotel. I believe it's 50 rooms. This is about a 7 or 8 minute walk from the Four Seasons. So it's in Old Town, and some rooms do have views across the river to the castle. So if your guests are okay with a 4-star historic building, which means all room sizes are different, this is a really interesting option, and it is in a former palace. So let's leave Prague and go to Český Krumlov. This is probably...
Quickly before you leave Prague, just one
sure.
question in the chat.
Yes.
Just to reconfirm that we can do activities only in
Yes.
Prague.
Yes.
And that extends also to all of our other destinations.
Correct. The minimum we would do is like a half day, I guess. We wouldn't do transfers only. We're not a transportation company. But if you have guests that, like we have a lot of times guests in Prague and they are coming from a river cruise and they already have their hotel confirmed with the river cruise and their transportation, and they have one free day and they just want to do something other than what's on their cruise itinerary, no problem. And that works in all of our destinations as well. The only time we're a stickler on hotels is if we're doing one of our white glove self drives, and I'll talk more about that later. If we're handling all of the countryside kind of intricacies, we do the hotels as well. But for, in general, you book the hotels, we book the hotels, we don't care. So this is a picture of Český Krumlov. It is a beautiful town surrounded by this little river, and this whole area of town is pedestrian. I feel like anytime you do this as a day trip, either A, you can't enjoy it because you've spent hours on the road. It's 2.5 hours from Prague, 2 hours from Vienna. Or B, you can't enjoy it because it's full of bus tour people. This is, if you take any kind of bus tour that does Prague and Vienna, this is where they stop always. So if you go for a day trip, you're there with a gajillion other people. It kind of loses a little bit of its charm. If you can make it that the clients are overnighting here, either as a side trip from Prague or part of, you know, Prague to Vienna, but they're going to spend the night here, or a self-drive, it gets some of its magic back, because by late afternoon, everyone's gone and the town is beautiful. It's all pedestrian. It's got great little restaurants. The castle over here on the hill is kind of cut off of this picture, has one of only 2 remaining Baroque theaters in all of Europe. It's a great place to spend the night. And we do give restaurant recommendations here and help with booking them. There are a number of hotels here. My favorite is called Rouge. It's in an old castle building, stretched called a castle, but a very old building with very traditional architecture, lots of heavy beams and very traditional furniture, but it's got a couple of things going for it. Number one, location is perfect. They have this little terrace overlooking the river. The front of the hotel leads out into Old Town, so you're literally steps from everything. The other thing is rooms have air conditioning. This is a big deal in the Czech countryside, and all the rooms at Rouge do have AC. There is another hotel that just opened, I think 2 years ago in Český Krumlov, that I really like and is cool, but no AC. And honestly, if it's July or August, Americans just aren't going to do it without air conditioning. Mykolaiv is the town I showed you earlier. I love this town. It's got this castle on a hill. The town kind of meanders downwards from that, and you're surrounded by vineyards. It's absolutely gorgeous. This is a great place for people who want to do wine tasting or see some other castles, because there's a whole palace complex outside of this town that's beautiful. It's also good for Jewish heritage. There's a deep Jewish heritage in this part of the Czech Republic and a synagogue to visit here. It is small. It's doable as a day trip, better than Český Krumlov in my estimation, because there aren't as many like day trippers here to kind of take away from the atmosphere. But it's really great if you can devote a night or two here. And if you have people doing self-drive, it's easy to incorporate it. The best hotel here is this teeny little hotel called Templ. I went in the winter when it was empty, so I could see every single room. It's got, I think, 17 or 18 rooms. About 4 of them are right for our guests, and I book the rooms by the room number so I can make sure we're getting the rooms with the best view, the right bedding, and AC, because again, not every room has air conditioning. But the staff is great. They have their own little wine cellar. It's really, you stay right in the center of town. It's very immersive, and it's just a cool experience. So this is an area in the countryside about 2 hours away from Prague, and it's called Hráleč. And it's surrounded by little villages. There are Nordic walking trails. Nearby, you could do hot air ballooning. But the best part is being able to stay here. This is called Chateau Hráleč. It is actually a restored chateau. A family from Prague came and completely renovated it. It's pretty contemporary with the furniture inside. Huge rooms, like gigantic rooms. No AC here, but these are castle walls, so they're like 2 feet thick. So it really never comes up as an issue. They have a spa, I believe, by L'Occitane. They have an indoor pool. They can do activities right from the hotel. A lot of times people say, I want to stay in a castle, and like they're in Germany, and I dread saying, like, don't do it, because all the castles there look better on the outside than they do on the inside. This is the one where it looks just as good on the inside as it does on the outside. Fantastic people. I love that it's family run. That makes it really special. And it's really romantic and nice. If you have people that are interested in traveling because they love art or architecture, this is the place I was talking about earlier, right here. It's called Villa Tugendhat. It's UNESCO protected. It's by Mies van der Rohe, and it is outside the town of Brno. I generally have people either do this as a day trip from Prague, or if they're being driven from Prague to Vienna, it's easy enough to stop here. This, above everything else in the Czech Republic, requires advanced booking. It is very restrictive on the number of people that can go in each day because it is a national landmark. And generally, I book this as a private visit for guests, so they are there with one of the curators. But in a pinch, we can sometimes get people in one of the group tours. They usually do like one group tour a day. But this is great for people that are into architecture. I had last year an interior design group that did this. And the art in Prague is not as, I would say, deep as you would find in Berlin or Vienna. Not that many museums, but some really great contemporary galleries. So if you have people that are focused more on contemporary art, it's a great destination. Culinary travel, I think, has become so big, and every year it just gets more and more popular. Mainly what we're doing with this is either some kind of food tour in Prague. We do private food walking tours. We can also do a pub tour if people would rather have a traditional Czech pub experience with pub food and beers. I've also got a guy who is a chef that worked in Michelin star restaurants who invites people into his home in Prague and will cook for them. And we also do hands-on cooking classes. So there's so much here. It is way more than the pork and dumplings that it used to be. Prague has Michelin star dining. There's really fantastic farm-to-table cuisine in the countryside. It's a great destination for people that are really into a high culinary standard when they travel. So let's talk a minute about white glove self-drive. So this works really well in the Czech Republic and with several of our destinations. It's not that often that I have somebody who does a self-drive just in the Czech Republic. Often it's Prague to Vienna or Prague to Budapest with little places in between. The countries that we do this are Germany, Switzerland, Austria, Czech Republic, Hungary, the Baltics, Scandinavia, Croatia. What it means for us with White Glove Self-Drive is that we work with you to plan out the entire trip for the guests. And this is guides where it makes sense strategically. It's often a bit less in the way of pre-planned guides than other trips. We are planning all of their possible side trips while they're driving. We set up all the hotels in the countryside. We can book the rental car, or you can, that doesn't matter to us. But before they travel, they receive a pre-programmed GPS as part of their final documents. So literally they just plug it in their phone or in their car and go. It takes all of the stress out of trying to have a phone signal or programming a car's GPS in Czech, or you're sitting in traffic the first day because you can't get your first destination. You have all the destinations in a list of favorites. They choose the one they're going to and go. The other nice thing about the self-drive is each of our destinations has someone on staff 24 hours a day that is literally a phone call away. They have helped guests out of all kinds of pinches before. Most notably last year in Czech Republic, I had somebody doing that beautiful castle Hráleč, but she didn't use the GPS. She likes maps. So I made sure she had a map in Prague, and there are 2 Hráleč towns in Czech Republic, and she went to the wrong one and then couldn't find the castle. So our staff walked her through how to get back and find the correct Hráleč. So it's just like an added insurance policy. I feel like some guests for self-drive, it's almost more stressful than vacation, and we try to take a little bit of that stress away. Family travel is gaining in popularity with us every year. When I first started at Exeter way back in 2003, there were literally no kids that traveled to our destinations. It was very rare, and it started with a trickle of like grandparents taking teens, and now we see a lot of families with kids as young as 2 or 3 or multi-generational trips. And again, we test everything with families on our own kids. So depending on the interest of the kids and the family, we can create family programs that work for a range of people. This family is biking through one of the national parks. We can do hands-on things. We can do horseback riding or, behind the scenes kids programs at museums we've done before. So we don't feel like, it's family travel, we can't do it. Come to us with the interests of each of the members of the family, and we will make sure they all have something that they, take away from the trip as customized just for them. Jewish heritage travel is very big for a lot of our destinations and very big in Prague itself and the Czech Republic. There are a lot of Jewish heritage sites. The Jewish Quarter in Prague, which is where this picture was taken, is a must visit even for non-Jewish guests. There are small towns in the countryside like Tabor with historic synagogues, or Terezin, which is a concentration camp. And we get a lot of people combining Czech Republic with Germany and following like a World War II theme, or with Krakow and they're going to Auschwitz. We do have people on the ground in the Czech Republic that for a fee can do genealogy research if the clients haven't done it on their own. But we do find that a lot of guests come to us already kind of knowing their background and what they want to see. And many of our guides here have a Jewish heritage background, or they're Jewish themselves. And that really makes like an extra connection with the clients that helps. This guide here, Camilla, is one of our very best, and she speaks Hebrew and she's Jewish, and she really has a great connection with our Jewish guests.
One quick question for you, Gwen, before we move on. When is the least crowded time to be in Czech Republic? I know that's $1 million question, and it certainly depends on the area visiting as well. But obviously, the Czech Republic in general is wildly popular.
Yes. So let's talk about taking COVID off the table, because who knows what it'll be going forward. But what I can say is the Czech Republic used to have 3 seasons. May, June, September, October was high season. And then July and August was kind of a summer low season. So the hotels would be a little bit lower in price, but the cities might be crowded. And then November through March was another season. About 4 or 5 years ago, that started shifting, and that summer kind of low season, shoulder season went away. So I would say the busiest time for Czech Republic, without considering COVID or anything like that, would be May through October. September seems to be remarkably busy, also with different events and meetings. So just keep that in mind, like business meetings, there are big trade meetings there. November through March is the least crowded time, but the one thing you have to be wary of is if you have guests and they're fixated on castles, almost every castle in the countryside, that means the castles outside of Prague, close for the winter because they're not heated. So while it is still possible to go to beautiful towns like Český Krumlov or Mikulov, the castles will be closed. So if they're, diehard castle lovers, that might be something that gives them pause. I will say that Prague, unlike a lot of destinations, doesn't have a giant increase in price during Christmas, which is great because they have fantastic Christmas markets the month of December, and they generally run from the end of November through January 6th-ish. They're a little bit more secular than some of the other countries, and they do a big New Year's Eve fireworks over the river. And I personally love winter travel just because I feel like there's something, well, number one, I'm in Florida and any excuse to get out of this heat. I feel like there's just something romantic with all of this architecture in the winter and in the snow. And I also love no crowds. I mean, I just love being in a place when, even without planning, I might be the only person in that museum, and that's winter travel. It's the best value, and while you don't see a sharp decrease in room night prices at places like the Four Seasons, you very often see free nights. So it's often like 3rd night free or 4th night free. At other hotels, sometimes it's an automatic upgrade. So it's worth considering if your guests are okay with, chillier travel. That's pretty much what I had to say about the Czech Republic. This is myself and my colleague Lori. We head up the Central Europe team. Sorry, this picture's in Budapest. That's the last place we visited together in October. We can handle any question you have, so you can ask for either one of us when you're calling for any place in Central Europe. In December, we took our entire staff to Poland on an educational trip. So here's us in downtown, the old town of Krakow. And as I mentioned before, we're all kind of divided into destination-specific teams. So some of us work more closely with Scandinavia, some with Russia, and so on. But we're always happy to help. Most of our staff has been to Prague, even if they haven't done a deep dive into the Czech Republic. So you can speak to us at any time. We love questions. We love talking about anything that has to do with travel. So we're always available for any kind of question. My contacts are here, and you can just reach me at Gwen, Gwen, at Exeter International at any time.